Nigel Farage last night in Question Time put up a bleak spectacle, not one round of applause for him, but then he'd had a difficult day. And I'm going to try and assess his performance briefly, but it needs to be placed in the context that he has commanded the stage during the election, garnering more airtime than the Prime Minister or Keir Starmer. Only Ed Davey and Wes Streeting get anywhere near the coverage that he has earned, and the former is desperate and the latter irrelevant. I think there are six major points that need to be made about Question Time last night. They're basically the six questions. But there was a hostile reception to him, and GB News have whinged about a left-leaning audience, and critics, including political commentators and former UKIP MEPs, have argued that the audience was not representative of the wider societal views. They point out that Farage was not really supported in the programme at all, suggesting strong opposition to him from the audience. Well, that, I think, has got a lot to do with the events of yesterday and Farage's handling of the events of yesterday. On immigration and racism, the first point, he faced tough questions about immigration policies and accusations of his own indulgence of racism, because I don't think you could say Farage today is a racist individual. All you can say is that he indulges racism. And the programme began with questions about a reform canvasser who had used a racial slur against the Prime Minister, which Farage claimed was a setup. The fact that he was an actor, the fact that he is an actor, that he has an equity card, doesn't mean that he wasn't a member of Reform UK. And that's the question that needs to be answered, and that's the question that's been ducked. And everything else seems to me to be a deflection. The audience members pressed Farage on when he would take responsibility for his actions and stop making excuses. His responses were met with scepticism and criticism because he's always got someone else to blame, whether that is vetting.com or whether that's an actor called Andrew John Parker. It doesn't matter. The third point is his Cameo website. I also have a Cameo website. If you can't get a response from Farage, come to me. But an audience member questioned whether Farage's use of Cameo for recorded paid videos was appropriate, challenging him to admit the importance of immigration in Britain's history. And, this is again about appearance over reality. It's about a failure to look at history and a jumping on the bandwagon. It's about Farage's own importance rather than the importance of others. There was a comparison to Trump. He was asked if he saw himself as another Donald Trump, given his use of similar language and political tactics. He was questioned about the unfulfilled promises of Brexit, with an audience member expressing dissatisfaction with the outcomes. Get Brexit done, was what his friend Boris had said, but they don't seem to be friends anymore. An NHS doctor challenged Farage on supply chain problems caused by Brexit, asking for his proposed solutions, and he couldn't produce them. But it's not just the supply chain problems for the NHS in terms of medicines. People doing research now have 1 or 2 extra years added onto their research because they can't automatically take advantage of the research in those fields done already by doctors and academics abroad. I was discussing some breaking cancer treatment the other day. Apparently we've just added 2 years at least to the incredibly innovative and useful work being done in this country. 2 years. because we have to now do our own research to get to the same point that academics and researchers have got to in their respective fields in Europe. And before Brexit, that would have been an automatic assumption. Jerry Gay, the editor of the BBC's Question Time, defended the audience selection, saying that the same guidelines were applied yesterday as in previous debates involving other party leaders. He emphasised that the audience was a representative of a range of political sentiments. But Lee Harris and Patrick O'Flynn, both commentators, noted Farage's combative approach. Despite the audience's hostility, they highlighted the lack of applause as indicative of the audience's bias. And like Patrick Christis, the GB News presenter, they criticised the audience and the BBC as unrepresentative of broader public opinion. Farage's appearance on Question Time draws attention to the contentious political views, the strong reactions they provoke, the charisma of the man, and the almost the contrast between that charismatic personality and the rather grim messages that he's got of division and mistrust. And there were tough questions, but not follow-up questions. And I think that is one of the inadequacies of the televised debate system. Almost every question which is tough needs to be followed up by a much tougher question, depending on the answer which is given. That isn't there. And what we need is a Robin Day, not a not a Question Time host. If we're going to do the hosting thing, we ought to be hosting on armchairs like Graham Norton. If we're going to do a serious political in-depth analysis, we need a proper and targeted interview. This televised debate is broadly a slogan-filled, headline-catching parade of things we've heard before, and there's nothing new. And it makes politics into a sort of football match, which is absurd. We might just as well be cheapening politics by placing money on a bet. But oh my goodness, people are already doing that too.